over slavery, war, and Reconstruction, to recent controversies over civil rights, economic opportunity, right to life, and the ordering of families. No short history can fully encompass such complicated themes and such complex events, but it does possess the advantage of portraying different American eras as parts of a continuous story. In addition, a short history may allow for a sharper understanding of how interconnections among politics, race, and religion have developed over time than can be provided by the detailed studies of individual periods and events that I have relied upon so gratefully in putting together this synthesis. There are, alas, any number of incidents, statements, or situations that could be used to introduce this kind of history, although alas is far too simple an interjection for the complexities of the story from Nat Turner to George W. Bush. To treat broad and weighty subjects in short compass means that I will be presenting something more like a cartoon than a real history. But even cartoons can offer a few moments of sharp focus. One such moment occurred in July 1863, the climactic month of the nation's most enduringly significant crisis. Earlier in July, crucial victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg turned the military tide of the Civil War in favor of the North. A week later, federal officials in New York City began to carry out the draft that Congress had authorized in order to meet the war's escalating demands for manpower. On Saturday, July 18th, Sergeant Robert Simmons, an African-American from New York City who had enlisted in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment of Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, was killed during the Union assault on Fort Wagner, South Carolina. His death occurred only days after anti-draft rioters in New York City, hell-bent on attacking the city's Negro population, had destroyed Simmons's family home and lynched his nephew. The riots, as a protest against the draft in general, and especially the provision that allowed men of means to hire a substitute, were fueled by the rage of poor white immigrants and left hundreds of African Americans dead. The day before Robert Simmons's death in faraway South Carolina, Maria Daly, a white diarist, had expressed fears that the New York mob would attack the block in which her home was located, since it was situated near tenements below McDougal Street, where a band of African Americans had taken refuge on a rooftop. On that rooftop, this black contingent was collecting firearms for self-defense and singing psalms for divine protection. Only a few years later, a conservative Catholic periodical in Munich published a long article by Father Paul Joseph Munz on the subject, Christendom and Slavery, which included full discussion of events in the United States. This journal, the Historisch-Politische Blatter für das katholische Deutschland, had earlier provided extensive coverage of the war between the states, most of it blasting the North for hypocrisy, since Northerners condemned slavery while they profited from the slave trade and the economic fruits of slavery. The journal also defended the Catholic Church as a perennial guardian of the humanity of Africans, while attacking Protestants for their inability to agree on what Scripture taught about slavery. Muntz recapitulated these criticisms while also asserting unequivocally the incompatibility of slavery with the basic conception of Christianity. He closed his report with a chilling prophecy. The North can free the slaves with force, but it cannot civilize them and deliver them from contempt and mistreatment. Here no one can help except the Church, whose main task is precisely this concern. In 1868, when this article was written, what would prove to be the long history of American contempt and mistreatment of former slaves was barely underway. In fact, it continued until the Church did do something about it, although it was not the Roman Catholic Church that led the way. In November 1900, the nation returned President William McKinley to office for a second term, and a comfortable Republican victory over his Democratic challenger, William Jennings Bryan. During the campaign, Bryan had distributed a pamphlet by the Negro National Democratic League